Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Cucumber and the data table. If you haven't seen my other videos about how to set up Cucumber, then you could do that if you want to, or just try to keep up, because Cucumber is in the old days, it was just used for business-driven development, where the business could actually choose which accept criteria there should be, and then actually write the tests. But I think in practice, it's actually still the developers that will actually write these tests. And Cucumber is actually quite good at making tests very generic and to give us a text that everybody can understand, and then make generic copy paste parts, the test parts. That's one of the good things about Cucumber. The downside is the same in my opinion, and another downside is that you usually would get some very messy steps, because there's a tendency to have a very few files, very few step files right here. And that's also, I've just made like 2 or 3 demos, and already this looks very messy right here. So so that is a downside. If you have problems running your test when you run and you want to run them with Maven, then I have created another video where you can see which dependency you probably are missing, because if you follow the official tutorials, then you need this vintage, the JUnit vintage engine, and you also need the Surefire plugin, which is right here. But watch my other video if you cannot when you run, if you use Maven and you run verify or test, then and your Cucumber test are not run, then watch that video. I have strapped this up, so I have to run verify in order to run my Cucumber test. That's because I'm using the integration test phase actually. I'm using the integration phase right there. But enough about that. Let us dig right into the data tables, because the data tables are a huge part of Cucumber. That is actually it is something that is used a lot, and it is usually used to send data to if you're using Spring Boot. If you have a Spring Boot application, then you would have your data tables converted automatically to JSON. If you use the REST template, that's a cool thing about this. It will automatically be converted into JSON, and then it can be sent to a controller, so your REST controller. I've created a cool situation right here. A scenario, send DCS data. That's a scenario. I have some spaceships. So given we have gaffer taped the following spaceships together, and this is where my data table comes in. I'll just give one row at a time right here in my data table. I have chosen to have the first row as a header, and I would definitely recommend you to do that. But you do not need to do that. You can also just have the rows like this, and then you can treat each piece of information as you will in the step that we have right here. I'll just continue reading the test right here, and then we will go to look at the Java code behind this. When send ships to REST controller, and what actually happens here is that then we will actually send all of this data that we just stored in a local variable to the REST controller with the REST template. But I'll show you the code behind in just a minute. Then all ships should now have an ID. The reason why I give another table right here is that actually I want to check that I have a ship name inside the database. I want to check all of these ship names. But Mike, couldn't you just leave out the other fields? And yes, actually I could. I could leave out my other data table columns. So as you can see right here, you actually use a pipe whenever you want to have a new column in your row. And if you use something like IntelliJ, or if you use VS Code, then especially if you have installed the Prettier plugin, then if you have some offset with your pipes, and then you save it and you format your file, Of course, you have added auto format on your save actions, right? That's quite a standard thing to do when you're developing, so you will not get as many merge conflicts as you otherwise would. It is important to, of course, format the files in the same way as your developer, as your co-workers do, of course. But if you use the same tools or if you use the same plugins, then that should not be a problem. But let us dig into Given right here. So here I have this cucumber, my steps right here. This is where I'll define all of my steps. Then I just write a text. I can just annotate with given like this, and then I can just have any text right here. I do not need to define any variable right here. When you use DataTable, you should not try to write DataTable something right here. That I actually started out doing that, and that is totally wrong. The DataTable should just be right here in the as a parameter to the method right here. So you just have it as a parameter, and then Cucumber knows, okay, this it is possible to place a DataTable in this step right here. And then we have the DataTable right here. There are so many cool things about this DataTable, but it's quite simple. We can actually get each row. We can get a row with an with an index. So we can just get the first row. Then we can just say row 0 like this, and then we can handle that row. Now we know that the first row in our situation is a header, so we will not do that. We will actually use the as maps. This is the as maps method right here. This will convert our data table into a list of maps. So this means that each map will be a key value set where the column header is the key, and the value would be the value underneath it on each row. The list will then contain each row. So this means that each item inside the list is each row, and then we have the fields for each of these spaceships right here as key value sets afterwards. That is called as maps. So if you have a header, the data table header, then you will probably also use the as maps method right here. Let us just look at some of the other methods that we have. We also have a as list. Then we just get the whole string, and then we just get each row as a string. That's also okay. But there's a lot of cool things that we can do with this. There's also as list. We can also try to convert it to a type, to a class. So if you want to use type safety, then and of course we would like to do that when we can, because then we get the errors compile time instead of runtime. Then we can also do that. So it is it's quite simple. There's not that much in it actually, but and it's easy to convert into something that we can actually send to our REST controllers, and that is exactly what we do right here. Because when we have an object like this, then especially if we have a map, that's easy to convert into JSON, and our REST template will do that very easily for us. So what actually happens right here? We are setting we have a local variable defined up here, private list ship. So that means that when we write given right here, then we actually just set this local variable that's named ships up here. I've defined a REST template because I don't want to define that every time I need to call one of my controllers. Another thing I have to show is before I continue is that I have added this Spring Boot test right here. This means that we will actually have a Spring context started up when we are running our test, and we will have the web environment running on a random port. And this is important because we need the port when we are communicating with the REST controller from the outside. And the reason why I want to do this is that then we can actually test our REST controller, just like if a client actually reached our API. So it's quite good test that we created this way. We actually get all the way through the controller, and we can see that the mappings were the URL mappings actually worked. And we can also see that all of the code, of course, worked, or else we'll get a return code 500, which is internal server error instead. So that was that step given, blah, blah, blah. Let us go back to my feature file right here. Of course, if you don't know it, but all Cucumber tests are put in feature files, and they're put in the folder that you choose. You just have to set your runner, or what you will call it, the class where you actually define where your tests are located. You need to say which folder that you're using right here. And of course you also have to say which package the glue is in. But you can have more steps. Right now I only have one class. You could actually have multiple classes, so you don't get a messy setup like I have right now. And that is a downside with Cucumber, I think, because a lot of people did just continue pouring in code into one class. So here we have given right here. So we have a scenario, send DT that is DataTable as data. Given we have gaffer taped the following spaceships together. Those are these spaceships right here. Let us change one of them to equal to. Let us change just one of them to something else, so you can actually see that this is live data and it actually works. And let us change the fuel percentage to 28%, and then I just press save, and then it is auto formatted. So so we have the right spacing between each of these pipes right here. When send ships to rest controller, let's go down and look at that. I just hold control, and then I can press the text, and then I end up in the method right here, send ships to rest controller. And then I build up my URL where I have to use the port is dynamic, so we do not know which port we're using. The reason why I do that is because I actually like to have my backend application started up at all time, because maybe I have a front end, so I sit and look at what is the final result, and then when I start my test, then I will get a port is already been used error, and this setup actually avoids that, so prevents that. Then I take the ships that I saved as a local variable. So at the given step, we set this ships right here, and then the next when step right here, we actually use the ships. We go through each of these spaceships right here. And as you can see right here, we do not take any parameters to this method right here. So then we go to each of these ships, and then we say REST template post for objects. So this means that we're actually posting this. These maps right here, and this is the return type. And then we say we expect to get a spaceship DTO returned, and this let us just and that's it. Then we system out print line that responds from each from each call to the backend. Let us look at the spaceship DTO just for fun. I'm using records for DTOs, and I'm using classes for my entities. If you haven't tried it out, then definitely try out records now that we have them, and use them for DTOs. They're much more lightweight and much easier. And if you have a plugin named JPA Body, then you can create those automatically when you have your entity. You can also create your repository automatically with the JPA Body plugin also. And that's exactly what I've done here actually. So I have an ID, I have a ship name, I have fuel, and I have max speed. The ID comes from the database. We can see that if you go to the entity, we can see that the ID is a generator value that comes from the database. The rest of the fields are fields that we have to set. And then we have our controller right here. This is my spaceship controller. In the top, I have a request mapping that says ship. That means that all of these mappings down here, they start with ship, and then they will end with an ID, for instance. Or they will just end with nothing. If I say get mapping and then just /ship, then I will actually get all of the ships that I have in my database, and those will be converted to DTOs like this that I have right here. Then I have a post mapping, and that is what we actually already have used. This is where we actually store each spaceship, and the body that we sent to our controller right here, that is the spaceship that we want to store. So that was the step right here. So when send ship to rest controller, then all ships now should have an ID, and on top of that, we actually sent a data table where we just use the ship name, and then we want to assert that the ship name is actually part of the spaceships found in the database. This is what this part does right here. we are looking for any match where we are. I mean, I like to use streams; they are just so convenient. Then we look for any match, and then we say ship name equals to ship name row, and then we get that property name from the map, because it is converted to map. You can also see right here. Here we have the expected ships converted to a list of maps. Furthermore, then I assert that that the ID should not be null. So we start with building up a URL like this. Then we get all of our spaceships from the database with this URL right here. So that means we get a list of spaceships, and then we go through each of those, assert that that the ID is not null any longer. It was null when we created the spaceship, of course. So that is why it's important that if that is not null, this means that it has been persisted in the database correctly. And then we will have, then we convert it to the maps right here, and we check that we have at least that we have all of the expected ships in the database. Just for fun, let us go back to our to this one right here. I want to change the order a bit, so now we start with spaceship named R2D2, and we also have a sparrow. We have an owl, and we have eagle 1 is down here. And actually, we should get an error now because we should expect eagle 2 instead of eagle 1. So let us just keep that error right there, then we will fix the error afterwards. You can see we just changed this to eagle 2, and now we have eagle 1 right here. And now we get this green marking right here that says that we have a test that failed. And what does it say? It says that we have a expected true and actual false. And we got something right here. Eagle 1 was not found in DB. Expected true, but was false. Okay, so let us try to change it to true, because since we just put eagle 2 into the database and not eagle 1, then of course we should also expect that it is equal to. So now we have green text, green tests right here, and you can actually look how pretty they look. The result from each cucumber looks right here. We have Garber taped the following blah blah. So each line that we actually goes through can actually be seen here. We can see the output in the right side. Just for fun, then I actually printed out a lot of each response from each post to our controller, and this is the result that we got right here. So Cucumber is fun to play with. When would I use Cucumber? When would I not use Cucumber? I would not use Cucumber if I want to test something deep inside my Spring application. Maybe I load something, a CSV file or something, and I just want to test that. If it's something that only happens once, where I only would have one test that would actually test this this type of problem, then I don't think I would use Cucumber, because it takes a bit of more time that when you have to create the feature file, then you have to create the step right here, and the more steps that we create, the more mess we actually get in our steps file right here. I would use the Cucumber to create these generic steps. And also if you are a team that uses business-driven development, then I would definitely also, of course, use Cucumber, because then then maybe you would have a product owner that would define these tests. Actually, the product owner would just write these texts right here, and then after that you can go implement the code beneath it, and then then when you move on to your next sprint, if you're running Scrum, then maybe the product owner would just reuse that text again, because you have, of course, explained to your product owner how it actually works, and then you could have the right accept criteria that this business-driven development tests, it should be green, and when you start up with your task, it is of course red, because you have not coded the functionality yet. So that is business-driven development. When you start with writing this test right here, and then you can see it's red, and then when you write the implementation, and then when it's green, then you are happy, and your task is actually done. This is Cucumber. It's a lot of fun to play around with. And the way to wire it up, look at my other videos. But it's actually quite simple. The only thing that is not simple is that we had to add that dependency for for JUnit, for the JUnit legacy engine. It was someplace legacy JUnit. That was the only thing that was a little bit, yeah, this vintage, the vintage, not the legacy, the vintage engine right here. We had to add that, and that was because in this in our test runner we use run with. This is JUnit 4. This annotation right here, and that's, yeah. If you don't add that, then your Maven would just continue without actually finding any tests at all, and it would not give you any exception or error or anything. So that's why it's a bit difficult to fix that button. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.